Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Great, thanks. So I'll start with qualifications of the continue with qualifications of the aspirant. So the way we are structured this reading is based on themes, and we started by finishing God Speaks, and then read Beams, and then started with discourses, all in the period of the lockdown. And so we used that structure, the core group that was reading, to decide the order in which we will read. Requesting all newcomers to just go on mute, please, and so that the audio quality is better for everybody. Now we start with qualifications of the aspirant. We are in part 3. Those of you following on the physical book, this is page 360 on the physical book. Part 3, readiness to serve. The format is very simple. We just keep going till anybody has a question or wishes to discuss. And at the end of every part or chapter, we pause to discuss it. So you'll see this in action today. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Qualifications of the yeah. Thank you. Part 3, readiness to serve. The aspirant always has to be in readiness to serve the cause of humanity. He need not apply himself to any type of work, irrespective of his capacities. This section is aptitude and abilities. He has to select that type of work which he is qualified to do by virtue of his individual aptitude and abilities. But whatever service he can render by virtue of his capacities, he renders it even when the circumstances are most trying. The ordeals through which he may have to pass are many, but his determination to serve whenever possible must remain unshaken. No claims of limited I. The aspirant is not in any way attached to the idea of service. However, in the sense of maximum results being secured through himself alone. If any service needs to be rendered, he is willing to render it without any amount of sacrifice. But he is never bound by the false idea, I alone should have the credit for doing this. If the privilege of rendering the service falls to the lot of someone else, he is not envious. If he were to seek opportunities for himself to render service, it would be a form of selfishness. In service that really counts in spiritual life, there can be no thought of the self at all. There should be no feeling of having something for oneself or of being the one who can give something to others. The self, in all its forms, has to be left entirely out of the picture. Service should spring out of the spontaneity of freedom, if and when it is necessary, and it has to come in the cooperative spirit in which there is no insistence upon the claims of the limited I. Freedom from opposites of great and small. If the aspirant is completely detached from all works and their results, he becomes free from the vitiating opposites of great and small. The worldly minded, kindly mute your microphones. The worldly minded, let me do it. The worldly minded feel their separative existence through achievements. Therefore, they have a natural tendency to judge their achievements in terms of tangible quantities. They grasp at the great things and avoid the little things. From the spiritual point of view, the so-called little things are often seen to be as important as the so-called great. Hence, the aspirant has no reason to eschew the one and seek the other. He attends to little things with as much zest as to great things. Although in spiritual life, even little things matter as much as great things, the conventions of the world usually fail to recognize this simple truth. By following conventionally accepted ideas, kindly go on mute, Jayashree ji. Artificially restricted to those activities. By following conventionally accepted ideas, the scope of possible service to fellow beings gets artificially restricted to those activities that are conventionally regarded as important. Much that really is of importance to life is neglected, with the result that life is spiritually impoverished. Accepted values, one second. Thus, accepted values determine types of service. Thus, in a society dominated by merely material conceptions of life, service is interpreted in terms of providing for bread or clothes or other physical amenities of existence. In a society responsive to the value of intellectual culture, service is interpreted in terms of spreading learning in different forms. In a society that has developed a taste for beauty, service is interpreted in terms of organizing the production and distribution of works of art. In a society responsible to the ineffable values of the heart, service is interpreted in terms of constructing those channels that will facilitate culture and expression of the heart. In a society alive to the supreme importance of the spirit, service is interpreted in terms of imparting spiritual understanding. Of these different types of service, the service that is concerned with spiritual understanding is the highest, because spiritual understanding includes the right perspective to all human problems and promotes their solution. Two kinds of service is the title. If there is no spiritual understanding, the desire for rendering service to others is harnessed by limited conceptions. Service is of two kinds. It consists in adding to the lives of others those things that are really worthwhile, or it consists in removing from the lives of others those handicaps that prevent them from having things that are worthwhile. If one's ideas of things that are worthwhile are narrow, the scope of possible service also becomes correspondingly narrow. The scope of little things that matter. The scope of service is not limited to great gestures like giving big donations to public institutions. They also serve who express their love in little things. A word that gives courage to a drooping heart, or a smile that brings hope and cheer in the midst of gloom, has as much claim to be regarded as service as onerous sacrifices and heroic self-denials. A glance that wipes out bitterness from the heart and sets it throbbing with a new love is also service, although there may be no thought of service in it. When taken by themselves, all these things seem to be small, but life is made up of many such small things. If these small things were ignored, life would be not only unbeautiful, but unspiritual. Mistakes in worldly judgment. Just as the worldly minded have a tendency to judge positive contributions in terms of magnitudes, they also make a similar mistake in judging obstacles, handicaps, and adversities. Thus, for most persons, the adversity of another must assume colossal proportions if it is to deserve notice. It is characteristic of the worldly to give more importance to things that take shape in external and tangible ways than to things that are silent elements of inner life. Devastating war, for example, is considered to be a greater calamity than lingering lives filled with bitter hatred. Though, from the purely spiritual point of view, lives filled with bitter hatred are not in any way less evil than devastating wars. War assumes so much importance because of the many visual instances of cruelty, but hatred is equally unbeautiful even when it does not materialize itself into outward action. In the same way, epidemics, injuries, and the sufferings of the deathbed invite more attention from the worldly minded than the agonies of the heart that is heavy with the burden of unquenchable desire. Life as integral whole. For the aspirant who is eager to serve without any desire for recognition and credit, everything that thwarts or perverts the release of a full life is worthy of attention, irrespective of whether it is great or small in the opinion of the world. Just as the building up or the collapse of empires has a place in the flow of universal life, the fleeting moments of sadness also have their own place in it. The importance of the one should not be measured in terms of the other, and the claims of the one should not be ignored for the claims of the other. The aspirant looks at life as an integral whole without allowing any part to monopolize his attention at the cost of others. Service inspired by love ensures harmony. Even when the aspirant is rendering service that is selfless, he keeps constant guard upon his mind. The aspirant must be humble, honest, and sincere. The service he renders must not be for the sake of mere show. It should be an outcome of true love. If the aspirant is inspired by love, his love will enable him to be in complete harmony with other aspirants without being jealous. If there is not complete harmony among fellow workers, the service that is rendered falls short of the spiritual ideal. Further, if the aspirant renders the outward service without a spirit of love, he is acting from a sense of duty, as in worldly institutions where there are paid workers. In the institutions of the world, people work for pay. At best, it is a cold sense of duty that prompts them to be efficient. Their work cannot have the inward beauty of work spontaneously done out of love. Importance of a contact with a master. The aspirant can best assimilate the lessons of true service if he has the good fortune to be in contact with a perfect master. The master teaches not through preaching, but through example. When the master is seen in his capacity of rendering service to humanity, the aspirant is quick to catch that spirit because of his love for the master. Contact with the master is also helpful in imbibing the spirit of cooperation, which the aspirants can cultivate easily because of their common love for the master. They serve because the master wants it. They do the master's work, not their own, and they do it not of their own accord, but because they have been entrusted with that work by the master. Therefore, they are all free from any ideas of individualistic claims, rights, or privileges. They are keen only about the master's work, ready to serve his cause to the best of their ability when they are called upon to do so, and equally ready to hand over that work to another aspirant if he can do it better. Service without fuss. In cooperation of this type, the aspirants are in a way serving each other because the master's work is accepted by them all as their own. And in being useful to a fellow aspirant in doing the master's work, the aspirant is rendering a service to him as much as to the master. In such service, there can be no bossing because the aspirant is always conscious that it is the master's work, which he has accepted as his own, that he is doing. He further knows that as aspirants, they are all equal, and it is easy for him to cultivate the habit of serving in the spirit of utter humility. If service makes him proud, he might as well not have served. One of the most difficult things to learn is to render service without bossing, without making a fuss about it, and without any consciousness of high and low. In the world of spirituality, humility counts at least as much as utility. Ideal of service. When the master serves others, he does so not because he is attached to the work, but in order to help and also to set his disciples an example of selfless service. While serving others, he sees himself in them and thus experiences having served himself. In his unwaning blissful feeling of oneness, the perfect master knows himself to be at once the master of all and the servant of all. He therefore exemplifies the ideal of service in which there is no enslavement, either of the one who receives service or of the one who renders it. The aspirant can speedily realize the ideal of true service if he has before him the example of a master. However, the spiritual preparation of the aspirant can never be termed complete unless he has learned the art of rendering service that gives not boredom but joy, that brings not enslavement but freedom, that does not set claims and counterclaims but springs from the spontaneity of free give and take, that is free from the burden of personal want and that is sustained by the sense of ever renewed fulfillment. I think this is a beautiful chapter about service and the way people on the path should approach service. I'll take a pause. Those who want to comment or ask a question, please feel free to unmute and take turns to talk. Thank you. Anything from your side, Mama? You unmuted? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have something to ask or comment? Okay. So if there are no questions, then I would request Kama to summarize.
Says it all. The chapter says it all. So
Indeed.
I think everybody is, they are trying to be with the words what Baba said, and these are the instructions for all of us. So it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Yes,
hitting very hard. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mandli follows this to the core. If you anyone see Mandli, anyone from the Mandli, they have this humility and love and compassion, and they don't do it as duty. They do it as they are serving Baba with everyone, with each and everyone. That's why it's so beautiful when we meet Mandli. Their energies are exceptionally beautiful. You feel you are at home. So it comes from this chapter is very important, extremely important. Thank you. Thank you, Karthik.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? Else yeah, go ahead, Vidya. We can't hear you, but I can see your body language. I still can't hear you. Okay. Kama,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Ravi,
I'm sorry. This is Ravi.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ravi. Yeah. Go ahead.
Somebody mentioned about humility. Did we talk about humility here in this?
Yeah, that's a beautiful reference, and I liked the line that he used. Humility is the minimum required as utility.
I missed it. Where is it?
Yeah, I'll just bring it up. Service, freedom from opposites, accepted values, if one's ideas, mistakes and worldly judgment. Yeah, I'm just finding that. Yeah, in the world of spirituality, I like this line, but he's talking about humility in this paragraph. Service without a fuss, right?
Oh.
Service without a fuss, page 364.
Yes. Yeah.
So here he talks about it, and I liked this line very much, right? In the world of spirituality, humility counts at least as much as utility, right? So there's no use of any
Just
there is no
underline.
utility. Yeah, I'll underline that. There's no utility to a service or any aspect of spirituality till you have humility with it. So I thought that was a very powerful line.
Jai Baba, this is
Humility in
yeah. I was not
Yeah,
able
go ahead,
to...
Ravi. I think you had something to say, and then you can come
Ravi,
back. Kama. Yeah.
I'm always confused with the word humility. Humility means different when you are in India versus when you're in the Western world. What exactly? Maybe you guys are very experienced. Can you explain what is humility? Is it by showing externally that I am humble, or internally feeling I am lower than you to any person, or I always feel I'm equal to everyone? Is my thinking wrong? These are the questions that always, whenever the humility comes, I hope Baba gives me clarity sometime. I'm humble to Baba. If I see Baba picture, I am humble to him. But if somebody is talking to me very arrogantly, I want to give it back to them. You know, I don't see Baba in that person. So I'm putting a lot of questions. Maybe put it for discussion here.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to jump in to react to that?
Yeah.
Very...
Can I?
Sure, Vidya, go ahead.
I do if you want. I will try and make an attempt to answer. And I think Mr. Ravi has been extremely clear. I mean, it is very nice that he asked this question. Yes, in terms of, I think there are two parts to this. One is self, and the other is the others. When we deal, like Baba said, you have to be involved in self and compassionate to others, and that is the important component when we practice humility. And I mean, I'm talking from my understanding point of view. There could be greater this thing of about the greater versions of this. So we have to practice that, and as you said, it is not about placing ourselves lower than others or superior to others. It is about treating everyone equally. It is very extremely important to not only say it but to practice it, because many times we say in words, but when it comes to actual behavior, we can't do it. We come get to somewhere the ego comes in and kicks in, and then we start not doing it. The other thing is at the deeper sense, from the heart, when you give space to someone in the heart with compassion, the reaction that comes, if you are doing really good to someone and you need to really have a debate about it, or you need to really be strong and assertive in putting a point about it, Baba always said that you have to go and speak your heart if it is doing good, larger good to larger good, and that is very important. So he always encouraged that. In terms of the external behavior, it could be any. It could look like, you're leading a normal life or anything. But the service that, when Baba talks about service, I think the service is about doing something which is happening internally, and maybe other people, we may not know that we are, we're doing the service. It is Baba's life, Baba to figure out who's doing what.
Okay.
The measurement of service at the end would be, is it doing good, or it is giving spiritual push to the other person? If someone is able to think extra mile by thinking about it, yeah, am I here, am I there, and all that, the logical arguments could be in the real sense, is it doing some good to the other person? I think that is what matters. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Vidya. I think we are almost out of time. I'll give probably 30 seconds to Kama if he wants to say anything. And then we'll have to test Gadekarji's connection and then go live. Yeah. Kama, quick.
Yeah, Jai Baba. I think to add on to what Vidya said, she said it right. I think it's a very internal thing. It can't be cultivated. It has to be spontaneous. And I think if we look into our own heart and see, is it a cultivated thing? Am I feeling good? It's okay. If we can observe ourselves and say that, yes, I'm suffering from lust, greed, and anger, I am feeling humble doing this, that is a form of appreciation. But ultimately, as Baba said, complete surrenderance, full selfless service only happens when you are God realized. So during the journey, I think there will be a lot of, ups and downs, waxing and waning. So as long as you do it, it's good enough, It's all about self-awareness. Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Jai Baba, may I say something?
We are almost
Baba,
out of time. Sorry, Samira.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine,
yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Thank
Jai
you.
Baba,
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. Darshanji, can you just unmute and maybe you'll have to reposition the video a little bit. You're seeing just your face, so maybe you can move it a little back. Darshan?
Can I know the person's name? I can contact him later on.
Sure. It was Kamakoti. I'll connect you with him.
Okay, thank you.
You can jump in tomorrow because this topic is not over. We'll continue.
Okay.
So, Darshanji, can you just check your audio, please? Can you unmute? Darshan, can you hear me?